Hi, I'm Ashley with Campbell. Thanks for investing your time to help your community be a great place to live. Before you watch the video, make sure to click the subscribe button so that we can help you make educated decisions as a board member.
Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday and good afternoon. It is now 12 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and begin. My name is Hakari at Campbell Property Management, and this is the Public Pool Inspection Report and Common Violations CEU course presented by Lauren Broom from Space Coast Pool School, LLC. For those of you who are not familiar with Campbell, we have been in business since 1953, and we manage over 450 HOA and condo associations, all the way from Miami-Dade to Central Florida, including Orlando, Daytona, and the surrounding areas. Additionally, we are Florida's highest rated management company. We work to bring valuable education to board members and property managers through our webinars, blog, and monthly newsletter. You can access our blog at getfan.org and see our upcoming webinars at campbellevents.org. And now I will stop sharing and I will hand it over to Lauren to get us started.
All right, I see the poll. We've got about 65% that has participated, and it's a good mix of different types of properties that we have. We have HOA of all ages, age-restricted HOA. We have a lot of coastal condo here and inland condos. So very good mix, and you all have public swimming pools. So this is why we're going to be talking about that today. So let me go ahead and share my screen before we get started here and start my slideshow and make bigger screen for you guys. So this is part of a line of courses that I did put together myself called the Florida Pool Courses. They are actually their own webinars or pre-recorded courses available through my website at cpocertified.com that you can take that are all approved by the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulations. I am a FLDBPR provider. There's my provider number, and this CAM course, that's the CAM course approval number for this particular course that you guys are going to get 2 CEUs under. So this is module 8 on my website. If you find the Florida Public Pool courses, there are other modules that will go over more specific things like within the fenced in pool area, the equipment area, spas, recreational water illnesses, and they're anywhere from 1 hour. And then there are 2, this one and another one that is 2 hours. But they're pre-recorded. You can go in and out. You'll get a certificate, and then I issue your CEUs through the DBPR website once I show in the LMS system that you have 100% completion of that online course. So you can certainly take these courses as a pre-recorded option for CEUs for your CAM license as well, and learn more about Florida public pools. I am your instructor, Lauren Broom. I have a Bachelor of Science from the University of Central Florida. I've lived in Florida most of my life, like 41 years now I've been here. I'm in the Melbourne, Palm Bay area. I'm a registered sanitarian. I worked for the Department of Health for 17 years as a public pool inspector here in Florida. And I'm also a PHTA CPO instructor. I've been teaching for 17 years, and I'm also an authorized OSHA trainer in general industry. So the objectives of this course is to give you guys a better understanding of your public pool inspection report, to gain knowledge to help pass your inspections with the Department of Health here, and learn how to avoid some of those common violations, especially the ones that are going to close your pool. Because those are the biggies, right? So the first thing I want to go over is the public inspection report, because somebody gets these from your inspector after they've done the inspection. And they typically look like this. They are all typed up now. They have laptops. There's no more like carbon copy, here's your yellow copy inspection report that's handwritten and stuff like that. So the pool inspection reports are going to summarize the information about your aquatic facility on the very top where that yellow box showed up. And then the second yellow box that you see here in the inspection report is going to give you your pool volume, your bathing load. If you got to rewrite it on your pool rule sign, that's where you find it. Flow rate, that's your design flow rate that you have to stay within 20% of for the health inspection. If you're approved for night swimming or not, this will tell you this is where you find it on the inspection report. If it says yes, you've already been approved. If it says no, you can't have night hours. And then filter type. This is a sand pressure filter. It uses letters. The inspector knows what it means. They can explain it to you if you want to know what that means. If it's a DV, it's a diatomaceous earth vacuum system. A CP would be a cartridge pressure system. So you have a lot of information on this inspection report. So violations that exist at the facility at the time of the inspection are written down here in the violation marking section. And the local health agency will not advise on correction of violations. It is the responsibility of the facility's pool operator. And communication with the local health agency is a very important step in the correction of your violations. So this is the very top. We blew it up for you, the top of the inspection report that you get from your health inspector here in Florida. And as we indicated, on the top is where you're going to have your permit number, the name of the facility, and the address, and all the identifying information. In the blue box, it gives you the type of facility, gives you the owner, person in charge, their email and contact info, and your pool operator. And then the green box is the inspection information, gives you the purpose, inspection date, and it gives you the begin and end time of the inspection when the inspector was there for that inspection. Down below that, you have the additional information box, like I said, and you're going to have it down below in that yellow box. This is where the inspector is going to put the things that they checked on their inspection. So if they should have a test kit and they're testing your free chlorine, your pH, your chlorine stabilizer, also known as cyanuric acid. They're looking at your flow meter for the flow rate in the equipment area and writing that down in gallons per minute. And if it's a heated facility, they should be checking the thermometer. There has to be an inline thermometer in the return line, and they're writing that temperature there. And then again, the blue box is the information, the same information that's on your pool permit as well. The volume of your facility. So you don't need to calculate the volume of your pool like you have to in like a certified pool operator course. Here in Florida, it's on your permit and it's on your inspection report. So the exact volume is there. The bathing load or pool load that you need for your pool rule sign, your design flow rate, your night swimming approval, yes or no, and your filter type. All right, and I'm checking, all right, I'm just checking the Q&A, make sure there aren't any questions, but I'd like to hold on questions to the very end so that, so write down your questions that you have so that I know my time to get the webinar done, and then we'll have time to address questions after the webinar is over. It makes it easier that way, that we have questions for Q&A at the end, okay? At the bottom of the inspection report, you're going to have the inspection conducted by, and this is going to be your inspector, who your inspector is. It'll have their signature, but it should have their printed name as well. So you can read it. It's going to have their contact info and everything. And that they're going to email your inspection report to you anyway. So they're probably going to have a signature block that has all that information as well. So the public pool inspection report, the violations can be corrected off of that report through on-site visits from the inspector. Some violations you can show correction through phone calls, email, or faxes. And sometimes they have to do a reinspection as well. Violations shall be corrected by the reinspection date on the inspection report. And contact the inspector for an earlier reinspection date if you want to get your facility open sooner. Contact them also, though, if you need an extension. Don't assume that they know you need the extension, all right? The extension date needs to be a reasonable time period as well. But you need to ask for that extension prior to the reinspection date, because typically they're saying on the report they're coming back at 8 a.m. on that day, anytime that day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., okay? They typically don't come on weekends. They're working Monday through Friday. They're government, right? 8 to 5ers usually. This is the top of the inspection report again, and this is where the yellow box is where your result right there, if it says satisfactory and doesn't say anything under correct by or reinspection date, you got no violations probably. If you see satisfactory, but then it says correct by next inspection, you have some minor violations that were not considered anything major in their code that they, per their inspection guidance document, can wait until the next 6-month inspection to reinspect. If it says unsatisfactory, then it's going to have a correct by date. And it depends on the violation and the severity and stuff when the correct by date is going to be. They have an inspection guidance document that they use that will determine that violation and the severity and stuff on when the reinspection date is. If you have a pool close result, that's the worst one. Those are really, really bad violations that are going to end up closing the pool and usually being reinspected the next day, unless it's something that's going to take like a few days to order a chlorine feeder and get it installed. The pool has to be closed until the feeder is installed and everything is corrected. So that's an important part of the inspection report to look at and understand. The purpose down here in the red box is also important to look at because it's going to tell you if it says routine, that means it was the routine inspection they had to do. They do 2 inspections per permit year, guys. July 1st to June 30th is the permit year. They do one routine inspection between July 1st and the end of December and another routine inspection between January 1st and June 30th. And so there could be, if they give you a closure or anything over here, the purpose can change from routine to anything after that to a reinspection. It could be an other for an extension. There could be a lot of different things under purpose here. So you kind of have to understand your reports a little bit when you're looking at them. You guys are always welcome to call me about anything, and you'll have my contact info as well. I had a lot of people contact me last year about questions about public pools after this webinar. And it was fun talking to people about different things that were going on. So this is the bottom section of the report where they'll actually mark, if you have any violations, you'll have like an X next to the number down here in this box. And these are the categories for the violation types. It's not going to give you the details exactly of what the exact violation is. That's going to be in a different section on the next page. So general comments are for general comments in the yellow box there. That's not where your violations are generally written. Violation comments are going to be written under the section in this red box that says violation comments. And it'll have the number pulled up from the top part there. And then it'll have the code section. And then the inspector is going to type a separate line that's going to specify more of what the violation exactly was. Okay. General comments could be if you had a perfect satisfactory inspection, they have to write something. They're going to write something like no violations noted during this inspection. That's their legal way of saying while they were there, they found no violations. Doesn't mean there weren't any before or after they left. At the moment they were there, they saw no violations from what they saw. Doesn't mean that they didn't miss anything either, because they're human beings. People miss things sometimes. And they might see it on the next inspection. So be aware that can happen. So now let's look at your annual operating permit. This is an example of an annual operating permit. All right. You guys all have these for your pools. And on the top, you have your permit number. Every facility, if you have a pool and a spa, you're going to have 2 separate permits. And they have separate permit numbers. They are separate entities from each other. They have separate equipment areas. An inspector can close a spa and still keep your pool open. Okay. They're written on different inspection reports. So one could be satisfactory and the other one could be closed. They're separate entities from each other. So different permit numbers, different who it's issued to, could be different ownership on there. The owner is indicated on there. And then here's the pool volume again, your bathing load, your design flow rate, and if you're approved for night swimming or not are all on here. Your expiration date is on here, and it should be the current year that we're in, June 30th of 2026 right now, right? We're running July 1st of 2025 through June 30th of 2026. So you guys all have permits that you should have gotten your renewals already, and you can pay for your renewal online. All right. So you can, and then you can print your permit from the website now as well, so that you don't have, they've gone paperless basically for billing and permit renewals. So you can set that up, and then you'll have your current permit, because if you have a permit that's expired, they can come out and close your pool after June 30th. All right. That is a closure condition in the code in 64E-9, which is a Florida administrative code. Now, if you have any variances on your pool, variance conditions, pay attention to that, because some pools do have variance conditions. You have to make sure all those conditions are being adhered, that you're following them, because they can affect your inspection report as well. So the inspector guidance document was updated in 2023. And I can send out, or have Campbell send this out to everybody that's in the webinar today. But I've also finished finally an inspection checklist that actually follows the inspection guidance document, along with a lot of other things that I compiled together over the years when I worked with the Department of Health. And it's a lot more user-friendly than the inspector guidance document that the inspectors use. It's more of a pass-fail. So if you mark pass, then you're good. If you mark fail, then that would be a violation. That you would want to then look at the type of violation on the checklist. And if it's a type A, it's a closure item. So if you mark fail on a type A violation on my checklist that I'll have Campbell send out, then this is something that you should close your pool on your own for until you get it corrected, so that if the health inspector does show up for their routine inspection, they don't catch you with a violation. All right. So the guidance document was updated in 2023 when the code was updated and the Florida Building Code was updated. It follows the order on the pool inspection report with the numbered violations. And the violations on the guidance document are typed by severity and fall under two main categories. They're either going to be a Florida Department of Health, which we'll call FDOH violations, or they're a Florida Building Code, which is an FBC violation under Section 454 of the Florida Building Code. So there's 5 main different types of violations. Type A are the really not good ones, okay? These require immediate closure until corrected or abated. All right, so type A's are the ones that you really don't want to see at all. These are the ones that you should be aware of, these type of violations, so that you know to have your facility closed and not wait until the health inspector shows up and closes it for you. And this is to help prevent serious or imminent injury or disease transmission within public swimming pools. Because you certainly don't want the health department to show up and post their sign, because their sign really aggravates the situation, makes the people living in the community more on edge, and they think that it's worse than it actually is sometimes. Okay. So if you can put your own sign up that just says pool closed for repairs or something, we don't really care what it said, as long as it said the pool was closed and it kept people out and it warned people. All right. That, or you lock it up. So violation number 1, water clarity and algae control. These are FDOH violations. And some examples are like the main drain cover is not clearly visible from the pool deck. The pool water is cloudy. Severe biological growth, which would be algae that clouds the water. And then you're going to have to provide proper treatment for the algae control anyway, which is going to require closure of the pool during that time, because they're going to be adding a bunch of algicides or a high concentration of chlorine or anything like that. So some examples. This is a hot tub. You can barely see this main drain cover on the bottom. It's cloudy enough that we can't really see it. You would not be able to see, it would be really hard to see a body on the bottom. So that's the reason why for the closure. This would be a closure item here. And then obviously this one, you can't really see the bottom of that pool at all. It's green as can be. So that was actually open. There was no signs on the gate at this condo, and they had let the pool go. It was during the housing market crash, and they didn't have enough money to pay the pool company with the remainder of people still living in their condos. so many people went into foreclosure during that time that they didn't have enough money from those living there. So they let the pool go. And that's okay as long as they lock it up or post it closed. And it's not going to create a sanitary nuisance like mosquitoes or anything like that. Violation number 2 and 3 are physical hazards that are under the Department of Health code. And this could be things like unsafe wet deck, sharp edge or broken tile in the pool, or a hazardous pool finish. And so this is up on a gutter edge where the tile kind of broke and there's some sharp edges on it. So somebody that puts their hand there could cut their hand on that. That can be a closure item. Okay. Having your pool cover right up near the pool deck is a tripping hazard. They could close the pool for that. And then having this pool surface here where it's got the chipping and etching majorly all over the pool, that could be a closure as well, depending on other factors as well. Any tripping hazards within 4 feet of the pool water edge with the decking and stuff. Skimmer lids that are sticking up. Pavers and travertine and stuff like to rise and fall, and other types of decks like develop cracks and settle and all kinds of things over time. So these things you have to look at and make sure that you're budgeting to correct those kind of things. Budget to resurface your pool. Make sure that pool covers, when they're taken off the pool and they're on the roll here, these chairs need to be removed over here, and you back that pool cover up against the fence because you have to have 4 feet unobstructed around the pool. Step edge tiles could end up closing a pool if they've got sharp edges or anything like that. Scum lines if they're bad enough. And algae problems. And the water level in this pool is not even up to the gutters at all. So, and then they've got whatever water was up there. Now it's sitting and they've got algae up there as well. Violation number 4, depth markers. This is Florida building code violation. If you have 3 or more depth markers missing or illegible, or the depth markers on the top of the pool curb or deck are not flush or slip resistant, meaning you can't slip on them, or they're cracked or chipped and they can cause cuts or abrasions, this would require a closure. So if you have 3 or more depth markers missing or you can't read them, they fade or something like that, then they can close the pool for that. Now, if you have stenciling or anything like that, that'll have to be brought up to code with all the tiling when you resurface your pool. So this is an example here of a depth marker that basically is not legible anymore. You can kind of tell it's a 6, but it needs to be clear. All right, so it looks like the tile might have came off or something like that. So pay attention to the inner tile edge where the depth markers are and on the curb. Violation number 5, handrail and ladder. These are Florida building code violations. So examples for closure would be missing, inoperative, loose ladders that are a safety hazard, and same with the handrail. Missing bumper guards on the pool ladder feet. Missing escutcheon plates that cause exposed bolts up on the deck or with the handrail in the bottom step. If you're missing your slip-resistant step tread on your pool ladder, missing steps on the pool ladder, or if the pool ladder is not flush with the pool wall. And again, ladders and handrails have to be addressed with pool resurfacing. All right, so this is handrail. It's the same pool that had the surface issue. This pool had another problem. That handrail could be lifted right out of the pool deck, guys. So that's an issue. That would be a closure item. Big safety issue. This is a pool ladder. They've got some galvanization going on here, galvanic corrosion going on. Do you see how the ladder submerged in the water is turning black? That's a high TDS issue in their water, which means tells me they haven't really drained that pool in a long time and refilled with some new water at all. But I wanted to show the difference. The one on the left is the newer ladder that's called a cross brace ladder. It has the bars across. This is the old ladder that is not cross braced. So when you resurface your pool, you have to update the ladder to the new cross brace ladder. There's certain things that have to be brought up to code when you're resurfacing a pool. All right. The problem with the ladder on the right as well is it's not flush with the pool wall either. The one on the left is. It has to be flush with the pool wall so that nobody can get caught behind it. The picture on the left is another pool ladder, but you can see that it's broken right there. So looking for things like that. Look at the steps. Make sure you're not missing any steps, not missing step treads or anything like that on the ladders. And then this one came loose from the pool wall. So that's going to be a big issue. That's going to be both of these would be closures. The next type A closure violation under violation 6 would be with step markings. And if you're missing over 50% of the tread length of your step edge markings, missing or faded, then it's going to be a closure. And so this is the first step of a hot tub that the step edge tiles came off and they kind of plastered the edge over. That I'm sure it was the maintenance guys. They're missing over 50% of the tread length here of those step edge tiles on that first step. So that could be a closure item. If you have a cracked step edge tile that could like cut somebody's foot or anything like that, if it's not slip resistant, if you're missing step edge tile markings, stuff like that. And again, step edge tiles are addressed and have to meet current code requirements when you're resurfacing the pool. So color matters as well. So they don't look at Munsell color anymore. They're looking at they're going to be looking at the light reflectance now in the code. And again, this is a step edge tile, and if it has any sharp edges on it, that could close that facility. Violation number 7 with type A for closure would be our suction outlet drain covers. So any suction outlet drain cover violations, like it's broken, missing, or unsecured, or it's not VGB compliant, then they could close your pool. So this one, you can see the big hole in the main drain cover. That would be a closure. This is another one. You can see the hole right here. And this is not a VGB compliant drain cover either. It's the old main drain grates. And then this is a approved VGB cover, but it's loose from the frame. The screw, they're missing some screws and stuff like that. So that's going to be a closure item. Those main drain covers are your first line of defense to direct suction and entrapment. Violation number A is your gutter grates and skimmer violations. So any injury hazard on any exposed broken gutter grate, missing skimmer cover on the pool deck. So that's up on the pool deck itself. You're missing the skimmer cover. Somebody could, you know, if they're not paying attention where they're walking, then that they could break their ankle, anything like that. And if you're missing your skimmer equalizer line cover or plug. So this is a gutter grate that's missing a screw. So if the inspector feels it's an injury hazard that could happen and it's a major thing, they could close the pool for that. It's dependent on what the inspector, when they look at it and how different people look at things. Sometimes it's based on interpretation, right? Oh, this is always a hot topic one. Violation number 9, what lighting? So first, let's look at different lighting violations. Loose underwater lights from the pool wall, that's a closure. Any electrical code violations with lighting. And then if you have pool hours on your pool rule sign that states night swimming hours, but the pool has not been approved for night swimming hours with a lighting certification. So there's a form that needs to be filled out by a licensed pool contractor or licensed electrician in the state of Florida. And then they submit that or you submit that, they sign it, and you send that to the Department of Health. And that will then update your permit. They'll send you a new permit that will state yes for night swimming instead of no. This is the form right here. So this would be your lighting certification form that you could request from the Department of Health inspector and then give it to whatever contractor is going to be doing your lighting certification. They also call it a photometric survey. You might hear it both ways. Underwater light starting to come out of the niche would be something that we would want to make sure we get this addressed right away. You can usually look down and you'll see it starting to come loose from the pool wall. If it's out like that on the right, then that's going to be a definite closure. Wire exposed and everything. Violation number 10 is your no diving markings. These are FBC violations. So when you have 3 or more no diving markings in less than 5 feet of water missing or not legible, it's a closure. If the faded no diving markings are faded to a Munsell color value of greater than 6, the no diving markings are not located every 25 feet along the pool edge, they can close it. And if you have a sun shelf, you have to have the no diving markings located every 20 feet. And again, no diving markings are addressed and have to be updated when you to current code requirements when you resurface your pool. So when they resurface the pool, if you have the old stencil, that goes away. You can either install the no diving tile on the left, or you can tile it out and spell it out in certain sizing requirements like you see on the right. Violation number 11, we don't see this one written up a lot because we don't have a lot of public pools that have diving boards or approved with diving boards. But diving board violations are FBC, Florida Building Code, and examples would be if the rail was over the deck 1 meter or higher and it's missing, if the diving board is broken or the diving board is not secured to the deck properly. So it's some common sense stuff. If it's loose, broken, damaged, anything like that, it's going to probably be a closure item for that pool. Pool covers, violation number 12 for closure. Pool cover violations are under the Department of Health Code. Pool cover, if the pool cover in use when the pool area is open, then it has to be, if it's going to be open, it has to be able to support a live adult person. So those floating bubble covers are not meant for that. Somebody falls into it, it can wrap up around them. They can't get out of it. They're going to drown, especially kids too. So if you have the pool cover on, you should have your pool locked up because you don't want anybody even in the deck area. All right. So it's those floating covers that we're worried about. And then if you have it on a roll and you've taken it off, you got to back it off 4 feet from the pool water edge before you open the pool. Violation number 14, life hook with the pole attached. So life hook violations are Department of Health. So you have any single missing or inoperable life hook will close the pool. Other things is if the hook is not connected to the pole, the hook is loose from the pole, pools over 50 feet in length, not having a life hook with pole along each side of the longer sides of the pool. So you have to have 2 life hooks and 2 life rings on the opposite sides of the longer sides of the pool. They can't be on the same side of the pool, okay? And the life hook needs to be connected to cannot be connected to a retractable 16-foot long pole. The pole has to be one single piece. So it can't be retractable like some of those are when you have your skimmers and stuff like that. All right. One single 16-foot long pole. Always check the bolts and wing nuts too. Make sure that they're on this side of the pole and the wing nuts are not on the other side and that they're both there and they're not rusting through and loose and stuff like that. Make sure it's on that 16-foot single length pole and that the life hook is conspicuous as well and that it's not being blocked by tables and chairs and stuff like that. You can get written up for that as well. This was a man-made life hook pole at a hotel. So you can, when I play the video, you'll be able to see that they made this.
Okay, it's doing video now. So show how it bends. Yeah, because it's not, this is a life hook on a retrofitted pole, obviously, with this PVC piece here. And it bends, so it's not one single pole. And you can tell that they cut this right there.
So I think the maintenance guys at the hotel there where we were teaching the class went ahead and tried to make their own 16-foot long pole. Can't do that. All right. What about violation number 15, life ring or rings with the rope? This is a Department of Health violation. And so any single missing or inoperable life ring with rope would close the pool. And again, pools over 50 feet or greater in length have to have 2 life rings along with 2 life hooks on both sides of the longer sides of the pool. Otherwise, it can be closed. If you have frayed or dry rotted rope on the life ring, they could close it. If the rope's not tied to the life ring, if the life ring does not have sufficient length of rope to reach all parts of the pool, they could close it. If the life ring is not 18-inch in diameter, and you can't use decorative life rings either. All right. So what's the difference? This is a decorative life ring. They're made to hang on a wall to decorate. Not going to be able to be used as a life ring for the Department of Health Public Pool Code. So usually you're going to have some kind of official writing on the back side of, like a label on the back side of that life ring. And it's usually going to say it's like Coast Guard approved or whatever. Okay. So be on the lookout for that when you're buying life rings for your facility. All right. The life ring, again, these are just pictures of some of the examples of the violations. You can see here that we've got a damaged rope that broke. They get dry rotted out there. The one that you tie it to, the blue one, and then also the white one. Okay. And you can see the fray on this one right here. So always be on the lookout and changing those ropes out on a regular basis because they're sitting out in our Florida weather where it gets really fun out there for them, right? The life rings really get damaged too out there. So if they're damaged, you got to replace them. All right. Make sure that they're conspicuous as well. Now, if you have a big drop off in your depth in like the middle of your pool, you may have to have a tile break line on the bottom of your pool. And then you're going to have a safety line about 2 feet before that tile break line. All right. So any single missing or inoperable safety line that's required in the pool can close the pool. So if the safety line is not attached, if it's in a pile on the pool edge, you have broken floats and the floats are not installed at 1 at every 7 feet, then that would be all closure items under type A for this violation number. We're still under type A violation. So this is that tile break line on the bottom of the pool, and about 2 feet before that, you're going to have your safety line. This will be another good example for you of a public pool that has the safety line, but 2 feet before the tile break line on the bottom of the pool. It warns people. They have 2 warnings before the quick drop off in the depth. Sanitary facilities. What do we mean by that? That's bathrooms, right? Sanitary facilities which are our bathrooms, are Department of Health violations. So if we had poop on the floor, all right, toilets aren't working. Poolside bathrooms are not accessible, meaning they're locked. A lot of properties will do that. They will lock them on the weekends. Well, they can't do that. They have to be open. Get a key fob or a key or something that the people living in the community are going to have. You can lock it, but then they have a key that they bring with them that they'll have access to the bathrooms. Make sure the health inspector knows that that's what you're doing. They can put that in their general comments so that they know they probably need to ask you guys for a key to be able to access the bathrooms if they need to be able to inspect them, because it is part of their inspection. Hurricane damage. If there's a hurricane that comes through and damages, say, your clubhouse, we had this happen in 2004 when I worked with the Department of Health, and the clubhouses were down and they had no poolside bathrooms, but the pool was fine. People really wanted to go swimming in their properties, especially the 55 plus manufactured home communities. So we let them get portable toilets under a different code, a different administrative code under the health department. And I think it was like 6 months they're allowed to have it, as long as they pump them out and they don't become a sanitary nuisance. They have to have 2 though, one for men, one for women. And you have to have a portable hand wash sink that's separate from the portable toilets. And you have to keep it stocked with the paper towels, the single paper towels, and water and the whole 9 yards. All right. So bathrooms can be inspected by the health department. They can be right off the pool deck, or they could be part of the clubhouse, but they're still going to be within the distance required by the health code. And they're looking at making sure you have hand wash supplies, so soap, disposable paper towels, or a hand dryer, someplace to put trash in properly. Some of the newer bathrooms have to have floor drains and diaper changing stations. And they're making sure that you have the number of toilets required and all that good stuff based on when the pool was built. All right. Older pools are going to have lesser toilets. They've increased the toilet count as the code, we got into more modern times here. So they're going to be checking all that stuff in the bathroom as well. So some people are surprised sometimes that they're checking the poolside bathrooms, but it is part of the inspection. Okay. Chlorine levels in the pool. This is definitely for disinfection is going to close the pool. So I want to go over this really quick. Swimming pools have to be maintained between 1 and 10. If you have a splash pad or anything like that, it's 2 to 10. If you have a spa or hot tub on your property, it's not 2 to 10 anymore, guys. It's 2 to 5. They dropped that upper level on spas from 10 to 5. That's a really hard level for chlorine to try to maintain. 2 to 5. So I'd be interested in knowing how many spas across the state have gotten closed, not staying between 2 and 5, since they changed that in 2023. And then indoor pools, if you have an indoor pool, has to be the chlorine levels between 1 and 5. So if it's not in that range, if it's below or above it, they can close your facility on the spot, just for that one violation. If you're using bromine on a pool, any type of pool, it's going to be 1.5 to 6 ppm. And then if you have like other types of pools, but mainly spas are going to be 3 to 6 if you're using bromine. And again, if you're not in these ranges, if you're below or above it, then the facility can be closed for the bromine level as well. And then we get into pH level. They did update and change the pH level in 2023. It used to be before 2023, June 20th, I think, of 2023, it was 7.2 to 7.8. They lowered it to 7. So now the closure happens when it's below 7 or above 7.8. So as long as it's between 7 and 7.8, you're good. And then we get into your disinfection equipment. You have to have an automatic chlorinator or disinfection feeder working on the pool, or hot tub or whatever facility you have. You cannot have it open if you do not have a chlorine feeder or some type of disinfection feeding equipment that is actually feeding the chlorine or disinfectant for you. Hand feeding chemicals into a pool in lieu of using an automatic chlorinator will close your pool. Hand feeding shall only be done for supplemental adjustments, like when we have a full day of rain or something like that. Salt chlorine generators not being utilized as a primary means of disinfection. They have to have a secondary disinfection system in operation. All right. So salt chlorine generator is normally not going to be approved by the Department of Health as a standalone means of disinfection. It makes chlorine, but they're not really technologically able to meet the health department output rates right now. Okay. And if the injection point for the chlorinator is incorrectly located into the collector tank, they have to be inputted into the return line of the pool, not into the collector tank. If you have no automatic disinfection device present, the pool can be closed. If you have a broken chlorine feeder, if it's disconnected or just turned off, there's switches on these peristaltic pumps, the Stenner feeders. If you just turn it off and it's not on, then that's a closure item if it's a disinfection feeder. If the peristaltic pump tubing is damaged or disconnected, or you have an empty chlorine chemical storage tank, then you're feeding air, you're feeding no chlorine at all. Or if the output rate of the disinfection feeder is not meeting the 6 part per million into the return flow, which is the output rate that is in our code. So this is a disinfection feeder here on the right. This is what we call a dry chemical feeder. It's an erosion feeder. And these are the ones that you put your tabs, pucks, or sticks into. And then it has a valve that controls the water flow into the feeder, and it erodes the tabs over time. But when you use this type of feeder, be aware your cyanuric acid will go up quickly. This is two peristaltic pumps, a chlorine feeder and an acid feeder. These are liquid feeders, and they're feeding from a tank that has your liquid chlorine in it, and the other one will have your acid in it. We'll talk about pH adjustment feeders in a little bit. But right now, if that chlorine feeder wasn't working for any reason, the inspector can close the pool. If this chlorine tank was empty, they could close the pool. If there was a split line on the tubes connected between the tank and the feeder, they could close the pool because it's not going to be feeding anything if there's a split line. Plus, now you've got chemical hazards that can happen. If the chlorine tank is not labeled properly as to it has chlorine in it, and even the acid tank, if it's not labeled properly, then that's a closure item. We'll be coming up on that one in a minute. Again, the tubes, if they're damaged or broken or anything, then it can be closed. Any reason that the automation system, which is an ORP controller, is turned off and it's required to be installed on that facility, then there's nothing controlling the feeder for you. Then that would be a closure item as well. This is a salt chlorine generator. They have a backup system that's required feeding chlorine as well that kicks in. The ORP, they'll have an ORP system monitoring the ORP millivolt reading. And if that salt chlorine generator can't keep up to that millivolt reading, it will kick the liquid chlorine feeder on to make up the difference, to get up to that millivolt reading set point that you put into your automation ORP system. So those ORPs are really nice, but they don't work perfectly. So remember that they still have to be babysat and that you have to understand them. The picture on the right is another dry chemical erosion feeder, okay, with the tabs, pucks, or sticks. Violation number 30, the chemical container mislabeled or not labeled. So if there's no labeling on the chlorine or acid chemical storage containers, they're mislabeled, or you're trying to use color coding with no word labels. You can't use color coding. It has to be word labels saying chlorine and the other one says acid. So if you can't read it or it's mislabeled, this picture here, this is what they were trying to feed. They had two of these, one for chlorine, one for acid. This was at a hotel that I taught a CPO class at over in Tampa. The maintenance guys went to their laundry area and got two empty Tide laundry detergent bottles and said, oh, they're empty. So we'll just use one for acid and one for chlorine. And the problem is the storage capacity wasn't big enough so that they run out quickly. But it's also mislabeled because now it's labeled as laundry detergent, but it's not what is in those bottles. They had acid in one and chlorine in another. All right, so mislabeled bottles will lead to closure items as well. Color coding on its own will not work. You notice that they have pH written on this yellow flap, but the chlorine label fell off. Well, after this inspection, I wrote that up, but then this pH label fell off and the pool tech showed up to this pool and he thought yellow jug with the yellow flap, but this yellow jug is chlorine that he threw into his acid storage tank. And he ended up creating mustard gas, which is chlorine gas, and gassed himself and ended up at the ER while on that facility's property, which is a big deal for you guys if something happens to a vendor on your property. You have to think about that. So we got to get back to some basic chemical safety and different things like that. Even if it's not even in the health code, there's a lot of stuff that are OSHA things that we should talk about that are not in the health code, so the health inspector can't enforce it, that I could go over with you guys. It would be a whole nother class on chemical safety type items. That would be a really big deal. And it makes things safer at your property so that things don't happen like that. Again, this is they don't allow these anymore. This is not allowed in the code, but back when I was there, they did. People were installing Rubbermaid garbage cans to store chlorine and one to store acid. They were using them for chemical storage. They're not rated for chemical storage. So now the Florida Building Code does indicate that it has to be a chemical storage recognized tank that's UN certified. So you can't use these anymore. The problem with the picture here is the tank wasn't labeled. So with no labeling, it would be a closure item. Now, violation number 31 under type A is our recirculation pump and that equipment there, if it's inoperable or missing. This is under the Department of Health. So if the pump is not running, it's not in operation, or the pool pump timer indicates that the pump is not operating at least 3 hours before the pool opens and 3 hours after the pool closes per your pool rules with your pool hours, then those two things could close your pool right there. And there were times I showed up for an inspection and the pump was off. So I had to close the pool while I was there. I see we're getting some good Q&A in there we'll get to answer afterwards. I see like 10 different things in there. So that'll be fun to address those at the end. I'm looking forward to the Q&A. So if you want to type your stuff into the Q&A ahead of time, that's good as well. And then I'll address them in order that they're in there. And then if you have any questions that you specifically want to call me about or share your inspection report is the best thing as well. So you can email me and then I can look at your last inspection report and read what they wrote instead of you trying to tell me, so that I can see what exactly is going on, so I can give a better answer to you. And then I sometimes will even contact the health inspector to get a better interpretation from them. Because communication is important, right? Number 32, violation number 32 under type A. And I'm honing in more on the type A's right now and spending more time on type A because this is what closes your pools, guys. So these are the things that are like your pool's closed and it affects the people that want to use the pool. Unsatisfactory is a reinspection, but unsatisfactories don't close the pool. So they're kind of the middle of the ground, kind of, you know, still important, and you got to get them corrected, but you have time as well. It's usually not next day. So I'm spending a lot more time on the type A's because these are the biggies for you that really are the big deal for the health department. So if you have a vacuum port on the sidewall of your pool and the cover or plug is missing on that vacuum line port, or it's broken, or the pool operator is vacuuming the pool while the people are in the pool, those would be examples under that violation of closure. So this is a vacuum line cover that's like a spring-loaded cover, but the spring part of it is broken. So that it would be a closure item right there, just for that. Violation number 46 for closure under type A would be the entrapment safety feature, which would be the suction. If you have a direct suction pool, meaning the pump, there's no collector tank. There's no collector tank at all that the pump is pulling from. It's pulling directly on the main drain. And you should already know if you have a direct suction pool. These should have been identified way back in like 2008, 2009 by the Department of Health. And that inspector should be aware of which ones have which devices as well, and how often they should be tested. So you either have a suction vacuum release system, also known as a SVRS, or you have a suction limiting vent line, which is an SLVLS, controlling the suction pump. And if it's designed to basically cut the pump off or cavitate it if somebody gets entrapped on your main drain or other suction outlet. That is direct suction, because that pool was designed probably and built before 1977, or you have a spa that was built before 1992. Those are the dates where direct suction went away. By 1992, everything had to have a collector tank. All right. That was a drop dead date for spas. If you're missing the entrapment safety feature, or you haven't done the required testing per manufacturer, most of your SVRSs require monthly testing, and the suction limiting vent lines require annual testing by a licensed pool contractor, because it's actually in the Florida statute that you have to be licensed as a contractor in Florida to test those suction limiting vent lines. The SVRS systems says qualified technician, so it could be a maintenance person. It doesn't say licensed. So they could follow the manufacturer guidelines for testing the SVRS to make sure it still works on a monthly basis, but they need to log it to show to the health department that it's been tested on a monthly basis. You may go, wow, my inspector's not doing that. Remember, they have a high turnover rate of inspectors now. They have for quite a while. So the level of what they know when they're going out and what they should be looking at, it takes a while to learn. And so a lot of them don't know that they're supposed to have you guys testing those safety vacuum release systems and suction limiting vent lines and who's supposed to do it and all that. What I want to do is make sure you guys know for your properties, because you're still responsible for your property, regardless if the inspector knows what they're doing or not, to keep it safe for your swimmers. And you're permitted by the department. So it's educating you guys so that you guys know, even if the inspector doesn't know. So this pipe coming out of the ground right here is a suction limiting vent line. It usually has screening on the end of it so that an animal just can't go up and die inside of the pipe, like crawl inside of it. So that sucks air back to the pump. And this is a VACalert, an example of an SVRS, safety vacuum release system. And so the suction limiting vent line on the left has to be tested annually by a licensed contractor. The one on the right would be tested monthly, because VACalert, as a manufacturer, says it's required to be tested monthly by a qualified person. And I have safety checklists for like these type of devices. If you do have them, I can send you anything you need. I have the forms and checklists and different things like that. When you get my email at the end of the presentation, you'll be able to email me directly and I can send you anything that you probably would be able to ask for. And if I don't have it, I can get it. Public records requests are a great thing. Violation number 37 or number 48, this is bacterial or chemical contamination and fecal abstinence. So if we have backflow that occurs from your wastewater back into the pool, fecal absence in the pool, animal contamination in the pool, or non-potable water gets into the pool water from flooding or from sprinkler systems. That's non-potable water means it's like not fully treated water. So it's usually your the ones like that they use that is kind of treated, but not. It's I forget what they call it, but it's not potable. They usually have signs on the lawn saying it's not potable water. So it's usually, that irrigation water, you're using that. If it can overspray into the pool, onto the deck or anything like that, then the pool should be closed during those times. So a fecal accident would definitely also fall into closure, okay? And they have to follow the CDC guidelines. So what if you get human poop in the pool? Depends on if it's solid or diarrhea. This will decide what CDC fecal guidelines you follow. And the pool operator needs to close the pool immediately and follow the steps in the document. And I can send you that document. It's also on the CDC website at healthyswimming.org. What about animals in pools? No animals in the fenced-in area of a public pool in Florida except for service animals. So that means no emotional support animals in the fenced-in area. A service animal is allowed up to the edge of the pool, but never in the water of the pool. Department of Justice that governs ADA and all this stuff will support this due to the illnesses that could be spread and higher demand for chlorine from the animal being in the pool. Because one average sized dog is equal to 50 people in that pool water. Okay. They don't wash up like we do. They could have a poopy accident. So if you have a service animal, it's allowed up to the edge of the pool to help in and out, but never in the water at all. So you can't just walk your dog through the pool deck. You can't have your emotional support animal there because it's not a service animal. All right. This is a wastewater line gap that you see on when they backwash their filters and stuff like that. You got to have that physical air gap between the rim and that pipe so that there's no direct connection, okay? This one is too close to the rim, so it's not meeting the air gap distance. This one is on the bottom left. You see that physical air gap there. And then the one on the right, they kind of modified it, and now that's a bad one, okay? Sometimes pool companies will modify things on you, and then it ends up being a violation. Just want you to be aware what these different violations are. Violation number 42 with equipment changes. Any unapproved equipment violations that could cause a type A violation, like disinfection modifications, filter system modifications, pump size, or going to like a variable speed pump modification, or other pool equipment that have been modified that could cause a type A violation, could close your pool. All changes have to be approved by your local building department and health department agency. Some modifications are required to be reviewed by the Department of Health engineer. And I'm going to give you some examples of equipment changes here. So say we currently have a trichlor dry chemical erosion feeder, and we want to change it to a liquid chlorine feeder. That requires a form to be submitted. DH4159 has to be submitted for that equipment change. That is not a like for like change at all. Okay. What if we're going from a trichlor erosion feeder to a salt chlorine generator? Again, not a like for like change. Will require building department and health department, and submit a DH4159, because the output rates for the chlorine input and with the salt chlorine generator system, you're going to have a backup system with an ORP. So there's a lot of things that will get caught ahead of time on paper before it gets installed. Don't let a contractor install something. Get it approved by the Department of Health and the building department on paper first. Once they okay it, then have them install it afterwards. Okay? That way you're not losing a bunch of money on something that they did wrong. Because now it's going to be on you financially because you had it installed before it got approved. Okay? If we go from a sand filter system to a cartridge filter system, pressure filter system, two different types of filter systems. How we calculate filter area for these two filter systems are completely different. It's not like for like at all. It's going to have to be submitted just like the other equipment changes, okay? Violation number 47, fence or gate breach on a code mandated enclosure. So this is Florida Building Code again. So if we have a breach in the fence or gate, or a broken gate or latch, that pool can be closed. Those are things that can lead to little kids getting in there and drowning. So if the latch isn't latching properly, the gate should self-close on its own and then latch. If it doesn't, it gets hung up or anything, then that's going to be an issue. If the gates, there's a gap under the gate or the fence. If the fence or barrier does not meet the Consumer Product and Safety Commission standards on height and the latch height and the whole 9 yards, okay? I have a document I could send you if you want it on the fencing requirements for Consumer Product and Safety Commission. And I can send you Florida Building Code, just the section that applies to public pools. I could send you the 64E9, the Florida statute, whatever you need that you want, I can send to you, okay? That apply to public pools. The more we know, the better we can pass our inspections. And I like pictures because it really helps show us what some of these violations kind of look like or what they lead to, okay? So any pools built before May 2004 code revision are not required to provide fencing, by the way. But we highly recommend that you have fencing to help try to prevent drowning. But they cannot write you up on fencing stuff if the pool was built before May 2004. So this is an example. Somebody sent me a friend, their daughter could fit through this gap in the fence.
Go through it again. Hey, go through it again.
And the pool's right there, and it's a public pool at a hotel or a resort.
Okay, now come back.
That's an issue for drowning. So be aware. This is going to show you one at an apartment complex I did a class at. Brand new pool, is 2 years old. and the gate got caught up on the sidewalk. They must have poured the sidewalk after the deck for the pool or something, and then they never pulled it all the way out to see what would happen.
All right, so this is a brand new pool, 2 years old. This is their gate, and it gets hung up on the sidewalk. So this is something you want to check on your gates, that entrance gates that go into the pool, because this makes it so it gets hung up. It's not self-closing at this point. You can see that it gets hung up on here quite a bit because there's a mark on the sidewalk.
You can see the scratch mark on the sidewalk, so it happens quite often enough that it's leaving that mark there. Violation number 48 is your lovely other category. So there's a lot of things that can go here if there's not another category for it. So if the pool's open to people, when there's any type A violation that's not mentioned anywhere else, they can put it under the other category. If the pool's open to people, when the annual operating permit has been revoked, suspended, or denied, or it's expired, they can write it here. If the pool's open to people when the variance provisions are not being maintained on the permit, if there's a waterborne disease outbreak without corrective actions, if there's a drowning, fatal or non-fatal due to the pool facility condition, electrical hazards evident visually by touch or by an incident. And they probably will refer this to the local building department as well, because they'll send their electrical inspector out. And any standing water in any pump room or equipment area would be a closure item, and they would probably put it under violation number 8, where it's an other category. So this is an equipment room, and they have water on the floor. They put the pump up on cinder blocks to try to keep it above the level of the water, but you can see the water's halfway up this 5-gallon bucket. That's not safe with all the electrical equipment and everything else in here. And there's a lot of other bad stuff in this equipment room going on as well. A lot of electrical violations and stuff that we had to report to the building department as well. Exposed wires. I mean, your breaker panels should have covers on them. Electrical conduits should be covered. We shouldn't have wires sticking out like this and all the splicing and everything going on like this. We need to have proper licensed people doing work on our facilities so that people aren't going to get electrocuted. We're not going to get hurt. We're not going to have fires, like electrical fires and stuff like that. And we had one at one of our public pools, and it was determined it was a electrical fire from the wiring. They were splicing stuff. All right, type A violations. The owner or operator can mitigate these violations while the DOH inspector's on site to try to avoid pool closure. Certain things could be avoided if there's somebody on site, like violation number 5, pools with more than the minimum number of ladders or handrails. If one's down, but they have more than what's required, so they still have what's required, then they could still stay open. If you remove or replace the broken gutter grate right then and there, and then it's not a safety hazard. If you replace the cover over the skimmer on the pool deck, or you replace the vacuum line cover right then and there, they may not close it. They may put it in the general comments, but not even make it a violation. Make the diving board and its ladder inaccessible, cover it or some way that the diving board's not a safety issue, then you could keep the pool open maybe. Write the contents on your chemical storage tank with like a black permanent marker. If you're able to do that while you're there, while the inspector's there, then it could lead to the pool not being closed. Or replace that vacuum line cover or plug, as I said. So those are type A's. Those close the pool immediately and usually re-inspected by next day, unless there's some reason that you're not going to be able to get corrected next day. Then they'll ask you when you think they can come back and do that reinspection, but it's an immediate closure. Type B are things that are going to be an unsatisfactory inspection, and the violations have to be corrected within 7 days. All right, so these are the next highest level of severity, but they're not a closure. All right, unsatisfactory, there's no sign up. People can still go swimming in the pool. And a lot of the swimmers don't know that there's an unsatisfactory. The property managers do, the maintenance know, and maybe board members know, but not everybody in the community knows that there's an unsatisfactory, right? So these are kind of major violations, but not as bad as the type A's. And they re-inspected within 7 days. And this would be like under violation number 27, the water level and the control. So water level and control violations where the pool water level is lower than the level of the skimmer or the gutter system. And this is because it doesn't allow proper skimming of the water surface. Or if that pool water level is higher than the level of the skimmer or gutter system. And again, you're not going to get proper skimming of the water surface either, especially with gutters. So this pool, you can see the water level is below the level of the gutter grate here. So there's no skimming of the water surface at all. That would be a type B violation that would give you an unsat, and the inspector would be back in 7 days to re-inspect that. This one as well, they might close it because of the algae, but if it was just the water level, then it would be a type B and re-inspect in 7 days. Violation number 34 under type B is thermometer on the heated facility. So if you have a heater and you don't have a working inline thermometer, then they can do an unsat and reinspect in 7 days to check for it. So if it's missing, damaged, broken, anything like that, you can't use a floating thermometer in the pool. It has to be an inline thermometer that's installed downstream from the heater in the plumbing line, like you see right here. So this is that return line, and they've got that inline dial thermometer that reads in Fahrenheit. It typically looks like this right here. If it's all damaged or rusted out or whatever, then you're going to get a same violation, re-inspect in 7 days. Type C violations are also unsatisfactories, but you re-inspect in 30 days, not 7 days, which means they're not as bad then as the other ones that are unsatisfactory, re-inspect in 7 days. So examples of type C are going to be like violation number 31 under pool appearance. If you have minimal amount of debris, scum, or biological growth, which is minimal algae. And a lot of these under type C is going to depend on the inspector's judgment on what they think is a minimal amount. If they think it's substantial enough, they may turn it into a type A violation. Type C could then become a type A if it's bad enough and close the pool. So keep that in mind. This is a scum line. So if it's bad enough in their mind, it could be a type A, but if it's minor, they might make it a type C, unsat, re-inspect in 30 days. Violation number 2 or 3 is deck, curb, or tile. And these are repair violations, right? So if we have minor damage to the pool deck, curb, or tile that would not result in injury, then it's a type C. It, again, depends on inspector's judgment. If it's a significant enough damage that it could result in injury or anything like that, they might turn it into a type A. So it depends on the inspector on some of these interpretations of how they're going to make it a type A or a type C here. Okay. Suction outlet covers. If the suction outlet drain cover exceeds the approved 1.5 feet per second flow, or the suction outlet drain cover is expired. If it's expired, it's an unsat, re-inspect in 30 days. And the reason for that is to be able to give you enough time to get a contractor to order the drain cover and dive the pool and install it. But it has to be installed by a local, well, not local, but a Florida licensed pool contractor. And there's a form that has to be filed with the Department of Health as well. The DH4157 has to be submitted to the health department. Broken, damaged, or missing drain covers will result in a type A violation, though, that will close the pool. So it's just that if it exceeds the approved flow, or they didn't submit the form and the cover is expired, then that would be an unsat. Violation 14 and 15 with your life-saving equipment. So things like if the life hook is not visible or accessible from all areas of the pool deck, and the same thing with the life ring. So if they're not visible or accessible from all areas of the pool deck, then it's going to be a unsat, re-inspect in 30 days. Violation number 17, pool and spa rules sign. If the sign's not visible or legible from the entire wet deck, if the no diving signage is not visible or legible, or the pool rule sign is non-compliant or missing. Non-compliant means that you're missing some of the required rules, and they did add stuff to it over the last 3 years. You have to have maximum depth now filled in with the blank for your pool in 2-inch lettering. They added about the commercial bottled water allowed within the pool wet deck area. That's all required now. There's certain things they added that are required. Now you don't have to make a new get a whole new sign made. You can just add to the current rule sign the new stuff. As long as it meets the sizing requirements and it's legible, you're good. And it's located where it's supposed to be. All right. They're not about you making the most expensive sign ever. You could get the cheap sign, order it online. As long as it's Florida compliant, you should be fine. I would always check with your health department, though, to make sure. So this is a current compliant sign. The other rules are in 1-inch lettering, the pool maximum depth in 2-inch lettering, and then you've got your no diving in 4-inch lettering. All right. So you can see the no food or bed. If you're missing a rule, then you're going to get written up for it. Okay. This is not going to be a very legible sign. Plus, this spa rule sign is missing a lot of rules that are required. Spas have their certain rules that are required on a spa rule sign that are not required on a pool rule sign. It's all in the Florida building code. Okay. So this is not a compliant sign. Plus, the condition of it is bad as well. This is a spa rule sign. It's almost compliant. The only part that's not is the blank for the maximum depth is not filled in. So always make sure anything that you're writing in or using stickers that they're clear and legible. Because I wrote up people that use black marker and it fades because of the weather outside. This one is showing an old pool rules sign, but I want to show you the pool hours. It says dawn to dusk, and it should say dusk. All right, with a K. You can use dawn to dusk so it covers you year round with all the time changes. So you're saying your pool, if you look at the definition of what dawn to dusk is, there is a clear definition, okay? This one, the property manager didn't think about it. So think before you make your pool rule sign, okay? So it should say dawn to dusk, not dusk to dawn. And then we talked about pool, restroom, fixtures, and all that. So poolside bathrooms need to be operational, but if there's less than the number of required fixtures, then it's an unsat reinspect in 30 days as a type C. What about your test kit and your reagents? So if the test kit is not there, not available for daily testing of disinfectant and pH levels, if you're missing the test kit, if the reagents are expired, it's a unsat reinspect in 30 days. If you're using a test kit that is not an approved DPD test kit, there are certain test kits that are not approved DPD test kits, then they can write that up and do an unsat. So the one up here is an orthotylodyne test kit. It tests the chlorine in a yellow color. It's not approved. It's not a DPD test. Orthotylodyne is a known carcinogen, so they do not want you using that. The Taylor test kits with the blue box are approved DPD tests, so you can use those. If the test kit is missing the cyanuric acid test for the required weekly cyanuric acid testing, then that'll be an issue. That'll be an unsat. You have to have all the alkalinity and the calcium hardness tests as well. And if you have a salt chlorine generator, you have to have a salt chloride test as well on site to be able to test the salt chloride concentration. And so weekly testing of cyanuric acid is required for all facilities that are using stabilized chlorine or granular cyanuric acid in their facility. Cyanuric acid, when we're testing the water for it, if the pool is 100 ppm or greater, then it's going to be an unsat reinspect in 30 days. If it's a spa or hot tub, it's going to be 40 ppm or greater. That's going to result in an unsat inspection reinspect in 30 days. And remember, cyanuric acid levels can only really be lowered through dilution. So that's going to require partial draining of your pool or spa to add new water to dilute the cyanuric acid out. And the cyanuric acid is either coming from them using dichlor or trichlor at the facility or granular cyanuric acid separately on its own. Spa requirements and ORP. So if you have an inoperable, disconnected, or missing ORP controller, or the pH or ORP probes are disconnected or not calibrated, or there's visible alarm signals that have shut off your disinfection or pH feeding equipment, that would be a unsat, reinspect in 30 days. If you have missing or inoperable ORP controller on a spa that was built after May 25th, 2004, then because that's when spas were required to have ORP, you can't just take the ORP off. If you do, it'll be an unsat, reinspect in 30 days to get it reinstalled and working again. ORP alarms that we're talking about are these alarms, like they usually have red lights on them where it says alarm. It's usually high ORP alarm, low ORP alarm, high pH or low pH alarms. Be aware of your different alarms and look at your ORP controllers. Have the manuals and do the basic maintenance that you're required to do. Violation number 27, water level and the control. So if you have a skimmer, the skimmer weir door, if it's inoperable or missing, that would be an unsat, reinspect in 30 days. Automatic water level control device in the equipment area, if it's not functioning or it's missing, then it's going to be an unsat, reinspect in 30 days. So this pool, they're missing their skimmer weir door. And then in this pool, they've kind of put a little piece of rubber mulch here to try to hold the autofill, which kind of works like a ball float, like you're in your toilet bowl tank. And that in the collector tank, it works just like that to keep the water level in the pool where it needs to be. But they've tried to jerry rig it here, and you can't do that. The pH feeder. So chlorine feeders, automatic closure, reinspect next day. pH feeder is not. It's an unsat, reinspect in 30 days. So if the pH feeder is inoperable, disconnected, missing, if you're hand feeding your pH adjustment chemical, like your acid in lieu of using your acid feeder, because hand feeding, again, is only to be done for supplemental adjustments, or if that pH feeder is feeding into the pipe before the pool equipment, because it should be feeding into the return line after the equipment, then all these would be kind of reasons for unsat, reinspect in 30 days. So we're talking about the pH feeder, not the acid feeder on this. The chlorine feeder is a closure. pH feeder, unsat, 30 days, reinspection. And then you're feeding from that collector tank that has acid in it. Now we get into violation 31 with the filter pump and pump violation. So this is where we get into the flow rate of the pool. If it's more or less than 25% of the design flow rate that's indicated on your annual operating permit or inspection report, then it's going to be an unsat, reinspect in 30 days. So for example, if your inspection report or annual operating permit indicates that you have a design flow rate of 100 gallons per minute, the acceptable flow rate based on that 20% would be allowed on the flow meter would be between 80 and 120 gallons per minute. So anything below 80 or above 120 would be beyond the 20%, and that would result in an unsat and reinspect in 30 days on your inspection report. So they're looking at the flow meter, and then they're looking at where that red or metal piece is hanging out most of the time, and then they're looking at the design flow rate. And if you're not within that 20%, then you're going to have an unsat inspection, okay? Stuck flow meters are also going to be an unsat, reinspect in 30 days, okay? Diatomaceous earth filter grid showing signs of wear and in need of replacement. Or you have DE powder bridging from one DE grid to another, or you have ripped or torn DE filter grids. They have cloth on them that hold the DE can adhere to, but sometimes they rip or tear. Those are going to be unsat inspections and reinspect in 30 days. So this is bridging of your DE powder. They've put too much DE, or they didn't leave it in pre-coat cycle long enough to get even distribution of the DE across the grids. So that's going to be an unsat, reinspect in 30 days. This violation, though, could result in a type D violation if the inspector determines that it's minor damage to the filter grids that does not impact filtration. And type D violations are checked at next routine inspection. So it could be minor enough that they could make it a satisfactory check at next inspection. It's still a violation, okay? Depends on how bad it is. Now, something like this, there's a lot of tears in the DE grids on many different DE grids here. This is going to be the unsat re-inspect in 30 days. But if it was just like one little tear in one little grid, they might do a satisfactory check at next inspection in 6 months. Just depends on the inspector. Violation number 33, flow meter. If the flow meter is inoperable or missing or it's stuck, which this is the most common violation written up, all right? And there are some flow meters that do not stick, by the way, like this one called the Flovis. It does not get stuck. It's actually installed into the pipe itself, whereas the other flow meter I showed you before is bracketed onto the outside of the return line. But stuck flow meter is very common. They get stuck a lot, and it's the most common violation. If the numbers on the flow meter can't be read anymore, so the flow meter is illegible, that's going to be an unsat re-inspect in 30 days. And if the flow meter installed is in the incorrect location, so if it's not installed on the return line like it's supposed to be, then that could be an issue as well. Or if you have an improperly sized flow meter, because they have to be sized properly for the pipe they're installed on. Now we get into violation 35, pressure and vacuum gauges. Pressure and vacuum gauges are inoperable, broken, or missing, then that's going to be an unsat re-inspect in 30 days. So this is the one that reads inches of mercury and PSI. Vacuum gauge has to be installed before the pump, and the pressure gauge is installed after the pump. The equipment room itself, the type of violations that are unsat re-inspect in 30 days. If there's chemicals being stored like separately from your chemical feeder and stuff, if chemicals are being stored in the pool equipment room, including DE powder, because chemicals like this are corrosive to your equipment and reactive to moisture in the equipment room. That would be an unsat re-inspect in 30 days. And then we get into violation 46, which is with Florida statute, that specific Florida statute right there for the manufactured anti-entrapment safety features. So if you exceed the manufacturer's testing time frame, or it's not correctly installed, or the DH4157 verification form is not timely delivered to the local health agency, then that could lead to an unsat with a re-inspect in 30 days. If you have no valid permit or never applied for a permit, so an annual operating permit that's not renewed by July 1st, or you have a construction approval given and then you didn't get your permit within the 30 days that you're required to get it, your annual operating permit, then it could lead to that unsat 30 days as well. The testing, as we said, for the safety vacuum release systems and suction limiting vent lines, you should keep a log like they are here. Now we get into type D violations. And this includes all violations that are not type A, B, C, or E. There's overlap in the violation types, but they're based on the discretion of the inspector and the severity of the violation. The inspection result for type D is satisfactory, and these violations are going to be corrected by the next routine inspection. So type D, again, re-inspect next 6-month period, next routine inspection. Under number 3, tile and pool finish, it would be things like if they saw like a thick layer of deposited organic material on the tile line, or the pool finish is worn, or there's exposed aggregate, but not really, really bad. These are all minor, minor, minor. Or a broken water line tile that isn't going to injure somebody. Then you get cracks in your water line tiles a lot, but as long as it's not going to cut somebody, it could be and it's just one tile. It could be satisfactory check at next inspection. So like one little area worn up on the gutter there, but it's not going to cut anybody. It's not going to hurt anybody. They might give you time to get that fixed in that 6-month period with a type D violation. Ooh, violation number 18, pool operator certification, which I teach these type of classes as well through my company. So if you have anybody that needs pool operator certification, we do provide the certified pool operator course through Space Coast Pool School, virtual and in person across Florida. But pool operator certification violations, this is what it says in code. The person servicing the public pool by maintaining the cleanliness, water quality, and chemical balance, if they're not properly certified, then would be a violation on your report. So to ensure that the pool technicians are knowledgeable, technicians shall attend a training course of national recognition. And that training course needs to be found on the FDOH list of approved courses, which the one I teach is. And persons that are only testing and logging daily water chemistry results are not required to be certified. But if you're doing anything beyond just testing the water and logging the chemical levels, cleaning the pool, brushing the pool, cleaning the filters, adding chemicals are all going to require you to be properly certified with a pool operator certification. All right, spa violations under number 25. If your clock isn't working, or the clock's not visible from the spa, or the spa water temperature exceeds 104 degrees Fahrenheit, or the spa is not equipped with an emergency cutoff or kill switch per their original construction design. Because it has to have the minimum 80 decibel audible alarm with it that sounds continuously until it's deactivated. And then you have specific signage that has to be with your emergency cutoff switch as well. That says alarm indicates spa pumps off. Do not use the spa when the alarm sounds until advised otherwise. Those are all satisfactory check at NETS inspection. So recommendations for spas. We recommend that you have a 15-minute timer installed on the spa therapy jet pump. At the time, there was currently not required, but I believe it is in code now that you have to have in the Florida Building Code. They updated it in 2024 that you have to have a 15-minute timer now. It helps to remind people though to not exceed the 15-minute recommended use time for health and safety reasons because of hyperthermia. So it's this type of 15-minute timer there. Wading pools. If you have a wading pool, it has to have a quick dump. If it's missing the quick dump, then it's going to be an issue. Satisfactory check at NETS inspection. So the wading pool must have drainage to waste without a cross connection through a quick opening valve to empty the water should a fecal accident occur. And that's because it's a pool that's 1 or 2 feet deep. Mainly little kids that are learning to swim are in there, and we have a lot more fecal accidents in those type of facilities. Violation 28 for disinfection feeder, that would be examples of a satisfactory check at NETS inspection. If we see the addition of erosion tablets to the skimmer basket or to the surge tank or collector tank, or we see a chlorine float in the pool, those are things that we're going to say satisfactory, check this violation at NETS inspection, and it better be gone by the time we come back. So no mesh bag in the collector tank with chlorine tabs, no chlorine tabs in the collector tank, no chlorine tabs in the skimmer basket, okay? You can't take your 5-gallon bucket and drill holes in it and hang it in the collector tank. That's going to damage their filter grids really quick because this type of chlorine is very acidic anyway. He had 2 erosion feeders that this maintenance guy just did not want to use. He took his 5-gallon bucket of tabs and drilled holes in it, hung it, and it's going to erode, but this is not where you want the chemicals to be at. The chemicals need to be injected into the return line after the equipment so that you don't damage the equipment. It's going back to the pool and diluting out before it gets back to the equipment in high concentration. Make sure that your chemical tank doesn't have a big opening in it when it's being stored outside so that rainwater gets into it and can dilute it down and everything else. Violation number 31 when it comes to filter pumps. And the violations here, minor tears or bridging of your filter grids would be a satisfactory check at NETS inspection. But again, it could turn into a type C if it's a major enough damage to the filter grids that they think it impacts filtration. And remember, if it becomes a type C for the inspector, then that changes it. Now it's a unsat inspection and re-inspect in 30 days. Thermometer violations. So if it's a broken inline thermometer on a facility that does not have a heater, then it would be a satisfactory check at the NETS inspection. Or if it's an inaccurate reading on the thermometer, but at least you have the right thermometer and it's installed where it's at. Again, this violation could result in a type B violation that if the inspector determines there's significant health and safety issues that would require correction within 7 days. Pressure and vacuum gauges for satisfactory check at NETS inspection would be if your DE vacuum filter has no DE on the grids, and this is indicated by your pressure and vacuum gauges. Or the vacuum gauge inches of mercury is higher than the baseline for when that vacuum filter is clean, then that could indicate that they're dirty to a certain point. Then they're going to do a satisfactory check at the NETS inspection. So they're looking at that inches of mercury. Where's the baseline? And if it's way higher than the baseline, then it's going to be indicating a violation at that point. Equipment areas or rooms. So equipment rooms filled with other items that could include like empty cardboard boxes, empty chemical jugs, lawn equipment, Christmas tree and other decorations. Or if there's no proper lighting in the pool equipment room, that would be a satisfactory violation check at NETS inspection. To get rid of all that stuff, it's not a storage room for other things, okay? If there's no fencing or barrier to the equipment or heater, that would be a violation, but check at NETS inspection. These are minor type D violations that are checked at NETS routine inspection. But again, if they think there's a severity here that could flip it to a type C, then it now requires correction within 30 days. The cross connection, I wrote this up a lot, guys. Missing vacuum breakers on the hose bib. So this is a hose bib within the fenced-in pool area, and they've got a splitter and then 2 hoses. There is no vacuum breaker here. That's a common violation, all right? So they're missing the vacuum breaker. This brass piece right here with that little piece right here on the hose bib and the hose is screwed onto that, that is a vacuum breaker. This is a vacuum breaker. It's required on all hose bibs inside the fenced-in pool area and in the pool equipment area. And then your other equipment violations, like if we have no water flow to the skimmer where the skimmer line is turned off, then and it's just one skimmer, but the other skimmers are working, then that could probably not be a big impact. So it'll end up being a satisfactory check at NETS inspection. Equipment changes, if they're unapproved equipment violations that are minor, that aren't, a big deal that compared to what we talked about already, then it would be a satisfactory check at NETS inspection. But remember, all equipment changes need to be approved by the building department and the local health agency. And some modifications are required to be reviewed by an engineer as well. And this is the DH4159 form that has to be submitted to the Department of Health with equipment changes. So type D violations, if the violation does not create a type A violation, then it's not capable of causing serious public health or safety condition, and the violation does not reduce the allowable bathing load by the flow loss of greater or equal to that 20% of your flow rate, then it'll be type D, okay? Approved chemicals. You have to use approved chemicals that are NSF approved, all right? So we recommend checking any specialty chemicals, especially for NSF approval on their labeling. The NSF logo can be found on your approved chemicals, and it looks like that. Maintenance logs. I saw somebody mention number 44, violation number 44. So if you don't have a maintenance log available for review, it's damaged, incomplete, illegible, no record of your daily pH and chlorine readings as required, or you're missing your weekly cyanuric acid readings. When you're using anything that would have cyanuric acid in it, either in the chlorine product or cyanuric acid on its own in the pool, then that would be a satisfactory check at the NETS routine inspection, guys. Violation number 44. And this is a chemical log, an example of a chemical log for you here. And they're missing their daily chlorine and they're not writing any pH readings at all and no weekly cyanuric acid readings. So I want you to look at the chlorine readings as well. And this is a swimming pool, 75,000 gallons, minimum chlorine levels of 1.0. April 2009, you can see a lot of 0.5s here. And then we go to May 2009, and we have even more fun with our chlorine readings not being at the minimum of 1.0. And then we get into June of 2009, where we have no readings at all. I show up on June 18th and I close the pool for 0 chlorine. All right. And the reason for this was, well, we're really not testing daily. And he was hand feeding instead of using the chlorine feeder. The chlorine feeder was running, but it was clogged up in the tube going into the return line, because liquid chlorine feeders will do that. And the Stenner will recommend changing the tubes out every 6 months. There are basic maintenance things that we go over in pool operator courses that those tubes can be changed out by your maintenance guys. It's not a requirement to be a licensed contractor. They're offline feeders. They just screw on and off. And you get the new tube and then you screw it back on and you replace it. There's a tube inside the pump, those liquid feeder pumps, that need to be changed out where the roller assembly is as well. So there's a document I can send you from Stenner that's the routine preventative maintenance that you should be doing on a regular basis to keep those feeders from breaking or becoming damaged. We want to be proactive with maintenance versus reactive. When you're reactive, it results in your closure of your facility, because when those feeder lines are clogged or they're split or damaged, you get no chlorine into the pool. And that's when the health department inspector always knows to show up just right. Damaged chemical logs, usually because of weather or it's being stored over a chemical storage tank and the fumes damage it. It's like you have no log. And that log is there for legal defense as well, guys, if somebody thinks that they got sick. Inspection posted. So if you are no copy of the previous inspection report posted, now the posting of the inspection report is required for facilities that charge an entrance fee. So if you don't charge an entrance fee, you're not required to post your most recent inspection report. So most of you guys don't have to. Just keep it somewhere where you can find it. But that's it. The other category for type D here is going to be like missing or broken covers on the floor or wall returns where the water comes back to the pool, missing or broken covers on jet therapy lines in spas and hot tubs, missing key or gate code for access to the pool equipment area. And usually that should result to an incomplete inspection because the inspector is not able to access the pool equipment and do their entire inspection anyway. So sometimes they might do an incomplete inspection. Food preparation on a grill observed within 12 feet of the pool water edge would be put under this kind of category. So you can't have a grill like 10 feet from the pool water edge and be cooking there. There's a 12 feet or greater for food preparation areas. If you have exposed PVC piping in the pool equipment area that was not painted, painting them helps prevent UV damage to the pipes. So if it's got a cover, then it doesn't have to be painted. It's anything outside of that. So this pool is good. The grill, I measured it. It was 12 feet or more from the pool water edge. Okay. This one would not be. It's closer than that. Type E violations, really quick. Our Florida building code violations have to be corrected by July 1st or 90 days from the inspection date, whichever comes first. The local health agency may close the facility if those violations are not corrected by that time period. So def markers, if you only have 1 or 2 def markers, if you have 3 or more, it closes the pool. 1 or 2 missing or illegible, or the use of unapproved markers will result in a type E violation. Handrail or ladder, so if it's a minor loose handrail or ladder, missing a escutcheon plate on the ladder or handrail, then it would be a FBC type E violation. Step markings, remember it was 50% or more tread length. If it's over 10% but less than the 50% that of step edge markings missing or faded, then it'll result in a type E. Type E's don't close the pool. They are marked as a check by 90 days or by the end of the permit year, by June 30th, whichever comes first. But if those type E violations aren't corrected by that time period, then your permit can be withheld from you, even if you pay for it, until you show that they're corrected. Gutter grates or skimmers. So 3 or more gutter grates missing or broken, skimmer weir door broken or missing skimmer basket, or broken skimmer cover, but not missing, just broken skimmer cover on the pool deck, will result in a type E violation. So make sure you don't have broken or damaged skimmer baskets or damaged or broken gutter grates, right? The no diving markings. Any markers are illegible or missing, or use of unapproved markers would be a type E versus the type A that we talked about. Deck shower. This is your poolside shower. If it's missing or inoperable, then it's going to be a type E violation. So make sure it works. Always check it to make sure it's working and it's not obscured by plants or anything else. Chemical container labels. If it's partially illegible, but it's still faint, you can kind of read it, then it would be a type E versus a type A. Type A, it's missing, or it's just, you don't know what it is, okay? If it's partially illegible, it's faint, you can kind of tell it's chlorine, or you can kind of tell it's acid, but it's not clear, then it's a type E. Wastewater disposal, if there's no air gap before the sewer line, then it's a type E violation. Like that. DE separation tank, if it's, this is a separate tank that has a bag in it for our DE filter systems that collect the DE. If your pool was built with it, it's required to be there, be used, and you can't take it out. If it's missing or inoperable, then it will be a type E violation. It will have to be corrected within 90 days or by the end of the permit year, whichever comes up first. And then certain equipment changes. If the equipment change reduces the flow rate by greater than 20% or more of the design flow rate, then and the bathing load is reduced, this could be due to pump or filter change or a heater addition or modification. Then that would be a type E violation. Fences and gates. If you have a damaged fence or gate, it's in need of some repair and it's not breached, code effective, where we were required to have fences and gates in 2004. Then if it's minor, then it's going to be a type E. If it's a type A, it's a big gap that allows, a kid to fit through. 4-inch sphere is what we usually use, or disc. If it's greater than 4 inches, then it's big enough for a child to fit through. So always checking your barriers and stuff, and your gates and your latches and stuff. So if it's starting to rust and stuff, that might be a type E violation versus a type A. So these are the most common violations that were written up in the permit year 2020 to 2021 when I did a public records request. Number 43 was maintenance log, and it was written up the most. Violation number 33, flow meter, was the next written up. So you can see as we go down, free chlorine levels in the top 10, pH levels in the top 10. So a lot of these things can close the pool as well. So what about, people ask about emergency telephones on the pool deck. They are not required in Florida Health Code on public pools. If you have it, make sure it works so that people don't assume it does and try to use it and then they can't. But you're not required to have one. Okay, they tried to, but it never went through the state legislature a couple times. So they're not required in code. So let's handle questions now. I'm going to go through the Q&A here. What is the temperature requirements for heated pools? Is it seasonal? This is Natalie. She was the first question at 12 o'clock. As far as I'm going backwards in the Q&A here. So the temperature requirements, if it's heated, cannot exceed 104 degrees Fahrenheit. There is no minimum temperature requirements right now. They are going to be adding to the code. I don't know when. There's a whole new thing for those cold plunge pools. So there'll be minimum temperature requirements for those type of facilities, but that's not in code right now. Carl Silverman said, what elements of the inspection rules are private residential communities exempted from? Are drinking fountains or emergency phones required at any private or public pool? So a private pool is any pool. So this is how Florida statute works. A private pool is defined in Florida statutes, any pool attached to 4 living units or less. If it's attached or pieces of land. So it could be a parcel that's not built out yet. So if you have 4 houses in an HOA and there's a 5th parcel and they just haven't built a house on it, but it's part of the HOA, it's going to be built as a public pool. We had one of those in our county that tried to fight it and they couldn't. There was no way. So it's going to be built as a public pool. Now, there is an HOA exemption for under 32 units or houses or whatever. And then there's 2 condo exemptions. That's a whole nother class that I could do for you on the exemptions that down the road I could do for Campbell if they want me to. I don't really want to get into those details, but drinking water fountains are not required in code either. All right. And neither are emergency telephones. Joseph Tobiah asked, we received a violation number 44 violation because our maintenance report only had 3 readings per week because that's when our pool service comes. We purchased a device called a Water Guru, which takes 5 readings daily. So we will fill out the other days. Is this acceptable? No, it is not. They will not allow. There's only 2 ORP controllers that got a variance to be able to test the water those 3 days. And Water Guru is not one of those devices at all. So you're required to test your water 7 days a week if the pool is open, and it has to be tested daily for chlorine and pH, and then weekly for cyanuric acid. Hope that answers your question. You can use the 3 readings from your pool company on the log, but you have to have somebody else. It can be a board member. They don't need to be certified as long as they're only testing the water and not adding anything to fix anything. All right. You're just testing the water and recording it on the log for chlorine and pH on those daily readings, then you don't have to be certified. But you cannot use the Water Guru to replace your readings. The health department does not recognize that, and they do not have an approved variance at all. Only CES and another one, I'm trying to remember the name right now. There's 2 different ORP controllers that have the variance that replaces some of the readings, but not all of them. There's still some wet tests you still have to do. Natalie says, I have a peninsula on my deck that the board wants to add a sofa to. I understand the 4-foot clearance requirements on the pool edge, but would a sofa be approved? No. You have to have 4 feet unobstructed from the pool edge with any kind of furniture or anything like that. James Kermer asked, with gutters as you showed, what is the correct water level, even with the edge of the gutter, or would several inches above the gutter be too much? So gutters specifically use surface tension to remove things off the surface of the water. So it's very specific for gutters on the water level for that surface tension to work. And so when we teach in CPO, it's about 6 millimeters above the level of the gutter grates. So hopefully that answers your question. Otherwise, you're flooding your gutters and surface tension won't work. Natalie Santiano said, is the new ladder requirement also applicable for the metal handrail on the stairs? Is a new ladder requirement also applicable? I'm not sure what you're talking about, the new ladder requirement. There is no, so you're talking about the cross brace. The cross brace is only for the ladder, not for the handrail, Natalie. Alexandra Zamora asks, what are the operating hours of public swimming pools during the day? Dawn to dusk is the best to put on your rule sign. It covers you so you don't have to change it with all the time changes, especially if you're not approved for night swimming. He also asked, how often is it recommended to change the water in a swimming pool? Not as often as a spa. There's actually a calculation taught in the CPO course for spas and hot tubs because they're a smaller body of water and the water gets gross more quickly with fewer people. And so on average, it seems like when we do the calculations, spas and hot tubs should be dumped about once a month, but swimming pools can go a lot longer. If you start seeing foaming in your pool, then it's probably time to dump part of it. Or if you have high cyanuric acid or high TDS, then checking those levels and knowing how to read them will indicate other reasons why you should be dumping your pool partially, never all the way, because you can risk popping your pool shell out of the ground. Joseph Tobias said, do the chlorine and acid tanks have to be covered? Yes. You can't just have them open. Things can drop into them. It's a chemical safety hazard. They should be labeled, covered, and around the tube, it should be sealed completely. Now, that's the ocean person in me as well. I want things safe for our properties. Is it required? You should have the chlorine and acid tanks on spill containment devices separate from each other as well. Is it required to have inspection and permit displayed at the pool? Not the inspection unless you're charging for entrance into the facility, which most of you are not, but the permit is supposed to be displayed conspicuously at the pool. Michael in Graphia asked for potential renovation of a pool in a condo. What is the best practice to obtain a professional consultation and a comprehensive scope of work to ensure what the current vendor is informing us is accurate? Aquatic engineer? Yes. And I have somebody that is also an instructor like me that also worked for the Department of Health and did a lot of the public pool engineering inspections and stuff, and I could give him your information if you need that kind of consultation. He could help you with that. He works with a lot of the pool companies and pool builders in Florida when they're working on variances and or getting things approved through the Department of Health. So I can certainly give him your information or you his information. I don't typically, I do routine stuff. Like, I think that it'd be great if property would have routine inspections other than just the health department doing it to make sure you're inspection ready, and have somebody like me come out and say, oh, this is wrong, this was wrong, and this is wrong. Kind of like food inspections. They do the same thing at like Publix and stuff. They have a separate company come in and do inspections that they get paid for to get the property ready. Carl said, how often must chlorine and pH levels be tested? It's daily per health department code. Michael Lupo asked, does the water have to be tested daily by a certified person? If so, how do they become certified? If you're just testing the water and writing it down on the chemical log, you do not need to be certified. But if you're going to fix the water, adding any chemicals, you're going to vacuum the pool, backwash filters, do anything other than testing the water and recording it, you would become certified. And you could go to my website, CPO. I'll put it up in a minute after I'm handling some of the questions here, but you go to cpocertified.com. Michael Lupo also asks, I hear that there's a risk of a pool popping out of the ground if drained completely. Is that valid, and how long can the pool be empty? You need to make sure that anybody who, for any reason, is going to be draining your pool all the way down is licensed so that they have proper insurance coverage in the state of Florida in case it happens. But they, being licensed, should know where to find your hydrostatic relief valve, which is typically found under the main drain cover, under the pool. And that helps resolve that problem from happening. Andrew Schmidt said, how many days a week is service required for commercial pools? There is no requirement in the code on how often the pool is serviced. They dictate how often the water has to be tested for chlorine and pH. So you can't just use your pool company with their 3 days a week testing. You have to do 7 days a week testing. He said, I've heard 7 days a week, but no HOA or condo does more than 3. They all go broke at even 5, let alone 7. So what's the actual rule? So you have to do 7 days a week testing, but you can have somebody that's testing the water that's on the board or lives there or a maintenance person, and they would do it those other days, and they don't have to be certified then. Scott Davis said, what pool build date or condition requires a VAC alert? A VAC alert is required on any pool that does not have a collector tank. So I'd have to look at your pool and your equipment area. So I would be able to diagnose that for you if I was out there at your facility. You could take pictures and send it to me if you want, Scott, and I can look at it, or video. But typically it's 1977. You'd have a direct suction pool. And if it's spa, it's 1992. Trying to get to as many of these questions as I can. I may have Campbell send me the questions after if they can, and I'll address the rest of the questions to them. I'll answer them, and then they can send it out to everybody. Annie Cummins said, if a pool is installed after 1992, what kind of safety valve is required? I'm a little confused, sorry. So if your pool was, it would be a spa built after 1992. If it's built in 92, it should have a collector tank, so you wouldn't need the safety vacuum release system. It should have been built to code properly. But again, like I told the other guy, you can take pictures and send it to me and I can see what's going on and get more information. Scott Davis said, I did not think that erosion feeders were legal in DOH. They are allowed, but they have to meet output requirements. They're not allowed on commercial spas or hot tubs, but they're allowed on commercial pools. David Myers asked, should I take any action if I witness ducks in the water? Yes. You have to make sure you close the pool, make sure the chlorine level has been at a 2 ppm for at least 30 minutes, and clean everything up if they poop in it, and then you can reopen. Karen Rosales asked for a permit to change from no to yes in the night swimming line. What do we need to do? You got to have a licensed electrician or pool contractor in the state of Florida do what's called a lighting certification or photometric survey, fill out the lighting certification form and turn it into the local health department. Annette Beverly, what about using copper to kill bacteria in the pools? I don't believe that they're allowing that to be used in public pools right now. Joan asked, does pool equipment area need to be locked and gated? It should be, yes, to keep people that shouldn't be in there making changes to anything, turning valves and stuff. It should only be people allowed in there to use it. Entrance to the pool is locked, but not the pump equipment area. I would make sure you lock that, Joan. Carl Malays, hopefully I'm not saying it right. With respect to pool gates, we have a conventional latch with key access to ingress to the pool, and also a key must be used for pool egress. Must the gate have emergency egress bar to access the pool? It's not in our code, but it could be in your fire codes when the fire inspector comes around, Carl. So always remember you got other inspectors that come around. So Hikari, do you want me to keep going with the questions even though it's after 2 o'clock?
If you have time, Lauren, that would be great.
I
For
can do
those
that.
of you who do need to hop off, you are more than welcome to do so. We do appreciate your time this Friday afternoon for joining us. So you will be getting the credits regardless if you do hop off here.
Yep.
The recording with the rest of the Q&A will be sent to everybody, so you can, hop off with ease, knowing that you will be seeing these questions in the recording that will be emailed out to you. I did launch the poll. If you can answer those questions, that'll be great before you log off. But yes, Lauren, as long as you have some time and we have the
I'll go ahead
questions
and answer it.
coming.
Let me go ahead and put my contact info up for everybody.
Thank you.
This is my contact info if you want to contact me with any other questions as well. And my website is cpocertified.com, and we do provide those Florida pool courses for the CAMs to be able to take and get CEUs. So you can take one on the condo and HOA exemptions. There's one there that you can take. It's an hour-long webinar thing that's pre-recorded. You can go in and out of it until you're done with it. And when you're done, you'll be able to download a certificate, and then I'll put you into the DBPR system at that point, and you'll get your credit. And it's not a live class. It's me. It's narrated by me, and it's the same kind of PowerPoint as this, but it's on the exemptions if you want to learn more about that, or you want to learn more about the specific violations inside the pool equipment area or the fenced-in pool area in more detail. There's all recreational water illnesses, spa requirements, all that is going to be covered, and it's all based on the Florida Health Code and how the health department is looking at it. That's all on the website under class types, as well as CPO courses, virtual and in person. We also offer Spanish CPO courses as well, virtually. So let me get back to the questions. Bob Wagner asks, is the bathing load only for the amount of people in the pool or the pool area as well? It's the number of people in the water. So you can have more people on the deck. It's how many people, because that's what the system can handle for filtration and circulation. David Myers asked, how do I measure the foot per second flow? That should really be your contractor that's going to do that. And it's taught in CPO class so that you're making sure you're installing a proper drain cover that doesn't exceed the flow rate of your pool. Michael Lupo asked, what certifications does the pool contractor have? They have to be, if they're doing repair work of any kind, then they have to be licensed, which is not a certification. If they're cleaning the pool and maintaining it, then they have to have at minimum the CPO. But they can't, a CPO, a certified pool operator, or anything like that cannot do repairs. Okay. Dan Martin said residents like having a floating thermometer so they can know what the temperature of the water is. We have an inline thermometer. Is it an issue having a floater? Typically, no. I haven't seen the health department have a problem with it, but technically you're not supposed to in code. But I haven't seen anybody really make a big deal about it. Just make sure that it's tied to something, like maybe the ladder or something, so it's not just floating in the middle of the pool. Is there any maximum TDS level in pools? This is from James Kermer. Yes, it's not in the health code. It's what's taught in a pool operator certification course. So you test your hose bib water, which is your fill water that you fill your pool with, and you'll have what's called a startup TDS level. And then you go test your pool water. If your pool water is 1,500 parts per million, higher than your startup level of the hose bib water, then you should be draining your pool for high TDS levels. All right. No on TDS, not measured. It's a pool store metric. That's what Scott Davis said, and you're correct. But it's still important, even though the health department's looking at minor things, or they're looking at things for them, but they're not looking at everything. Just because they don't look at it doesn't mean it's not important to be tested and measured. Okay. Joan Kahn said, for Florida HOA pools, how is the wet deck defined during an inspection? It's 4 feet from the pool water edge. Is there any specific distance from the pool edge? Yep, 4 feet. David Myers asked, can algae survive in or under properly chlorinated water? And what about mold? Yes, it can. We don't see mold too much, but algae, yes. I've even, specifically black algae, especially when we go from spring into summer and the water temperature is starting to go up, even with like a 3 part per million of chlorine, you can still see the black algae come back. It's about keeping algae out from the get-go. All right. Carl, malaise and is accumulation of sunblock and tanning oils and cream in the gutter channel a violation? Yes. They might write it up just as a satisfactory check at nets inspection, depending on how bad it is. Otherwise, they might make it a type C, where they're going to re-inspect in 30 days to make sure it gets cleaned up. Annie Cummins asked, what is the maximum water temperature for an outdoor community pool in Palm Beach County? Their maximum water temperature is 104 degrees Fahrenheit. There is no minimum. Let's see. Carl asked, our pool HVAC system has a cooling component. Are there any specific rules regarding the HVAC systems and the cooling element specifically? Not that I'm aware of. So you're cooling the water down is what I'm assuming. And so there is no minimum cold temperature right now in the code. Michael asked, should the water quality checks on a daily basis be on the same form? Example, our pool company does 3 days a week. We do the other days. It should be in the same place so that the health department sees it. What about a digital chemical log? You can, as long as it's available to the Department of Health Inspector. Now, there is one available called Pool Shark H2O. He gives you a QR code. There is a cost to using it, but he's made it to meet health department code requirements. It's a digital chemical log. And then there's a QR code sticker that you get that you can put on your equipment area door or cover or wherever. And the inspector can use their cell phone camera to access the QR code to get to the digital chemical log. But there is a cost to that. It's not free. But there are things like that that do exist. And if it's available, and I would make sure the inspector knows that you go from a paper to a digital chemical log. They can't just read your minds. They may not know about, if they're a new inspector, they may not know about that QR code and that's available and what it is. So you need to let them know about it, right? Because a new inspector doesn't know everything about the pool industry. I've been in the pool industry for over 20 years, so I know what's out there and what's available. Let's see. Carl asked, our pool pumping equipment is enclosed in a fiberglass enclosure. It is rickety and somewhat falling apart. Is this a violation? It can be. Yes, I've had some fall on my head and stuff. And so you've got to make sure you get that repaired. The brackets on the hinges break and stuff like that. Because if you make it hard or difficult for a pool company employee or pool tech to go out there and do what they need to do, they're probably not going to do the work. They're not going to clean your filters and stuff like they're supposed to if you make it that hard to get into the equipment area. You got to invest back into your properties, guys. You got to save money in your budget for your pool. It's an amenity that you want to have, but you got to take care of it too. You just don't build it and install the equipment and let it go. It's like a car or anything else. There's routine maintenance that have to be done. Scott asked, what are the approved ORP devices that can get a variance? It's CES, which they're owned by Heritage now. They were bought out by Aquafinity, and now I heard Heritage Pool Supply just bought Aquafinity out. So I'll have to figure out if the variance is still applicable because I'm not sure it is when they have a change of ownership. The other one would still be applicable. I'll have to look it up. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but I'm the one that wrote the variance for them. So I know that there's a second one because I wrote the variance for them. But it doesn't remove all the daily testing, Scott. Joe, you asked, did you say furniture needs to be at least 4 feet from the pool water edge of the pool? Yes. Michael said, yes, please. Thank you. I don't know what that was about, but email me anything you have. Scott said you have a surge tank. So if you have a surge tank or collector tank, you have a gravity feed tank, which means you don't need a vac alert or anything like that. You don't need a safety vacuum release system or a suction limiting vent line. Got here late as well. Technology. Okay, so that's Shannon. Do you offer Spanish CPO classes? Yes, we do virtually, Lynn. Scott, I said I have a thermometer in the collector tank and it's used to help calculate granular saturation index. That's great because I know some people that use the dip their finger or toe in the water to get the temperature, and I teach not to do that. We don't want guessing. We want the exact temperature. And then okay, so you have a example logs here that Scott posted, which is awesome. So I think I answered all the questions that came up on the webinar Q&A. So if you have any additional questions, you got my contact information, everyone, and you can contact me. I hope you all enjoyed this presentation. And I hope to see you again next year, or maybe some of you will take some of my pre-recorded courses. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Michael.
Lauren. Thank you, Lauren. And again, thank you everyone for joining, whoever stayed on till the end here. And we hope to see you again in the future, and we hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching. For more great educational content, click the subscribe button now.